Hi, Connor. Um, if I still sound a little bit like I've got a cold, it's because I do, but I can certainly do a quick video for you on Camera Raw, getting started, and this is built into Adobe Photoshop. And when you launch any RAW file, in your case it's a CR2 file from a Canon, excuse me, the Adobe Camera Raw automatically launches. And let's see, I'm just going to hit get started. And this is a pre-editor basically for Photoshop. It's what we use to tune up a file before we even take it to Photoshop. And what's wonderful is that with a raw file, it's like having the digital negative. And so we have control over the exposure, the contrast, highlights and shadows, whites and blacks, how warm it is, and a myriad of functions that go far deeper into the editing process than working on a JPEG in Photoshop. So it's well worth your time to learn this. So this file you sent me is lovely. I like how the sunlight is sparkling through the new ice, and as you mentioned, the prismatic rainbow colors that are hidden in here. I like how the background is dark so that this is separating nicely, and it's not like all kinds of stuff in the background that is getting in the way here. Because you shot it with a telephoto lens, the depth of field is naturally short, and the background is going out of focus in a very nice way. The circular bokeh effects is all real and natural and optical, and not anything to do with an iPhone kind of fake bokeh. Okay, so when we do any editing, we ask just some basic questions. Where's the focal point? And I would argue that it's this lovely light up in the top third here. Okay. And is there anything taking your eye away from the focal point that might weaken it? Not really. This is a strong shot. If I could argue a little bit, down here at the bottom, we could darken and quiet a little bit, vignette some of the edge. But it's a good exposure. I'm seeing the histogram in the upper right here. And notice it goes from solid black to white, and it's not up against the wall on either side very much, which means we have a nice full exposure. And it's not clipped in any big way. There's very tiny pieces of clipping in here, but that's fine for the ice. And we can get some control over that with the whites in here. Okay, what you said also is what was important to you was bringing up some of the color. So let's get started. Contrast. I'm going to quiet it a little bit here in Camera Raw, and then do the final editing in Photoshop. So I brought back the contrast a little bit. The whites I'm going to bring back just a little bit, just to get a little more quality of color in here instead of it being so sort of contrasty. Vibrance and saturation, though, this is what you're looking for. So adding some saturation is going to bring up some color, but we don't want to be crazy about it either. I'm seeing the magentas coming up here, and the cyans are coming up, and vibrance will also enhance some of that. Tint is a magenta green slider. I'm going to leave that alone. It's not green right now. And do I want it warmer or cooler? I think it's good the way it is. Okay. Your blacks are looking pretty good. So all in all, it's a really nice shot. You shot it at ISO 125, excellent, so we should have zero noise in it. And you shot it at full telephoto at 300 millimeter, which is good. So that gives us this very shallow depth of field here at a 500th of a second. Excellent. So that there won't be any camera shake that shows up in it. So I'm ready to open it now. So here we go. Click open down at the bottom right. And let's see. Come on, Photoshop. Bring it in the other window here. Now I'm going to just sit and look at it for a second and decide. I like the grays in here and more bokeh without it getting solid black. I don't think I would add more color than this because then it might look a bit artificial. As I mentioned, we could darken some of this outer edge here. So I'm going to take the lasso tool and just come through here. And then I click select and mask. Always feather your selections. It's like being in the dark room and blending your light by moving your hands. So right here, we click feather until it blends way back, like that. Say OK. And now I'm going to darken this. And when I darken, I don't use levels. I use image, adjustment, brightness, contrast. It's much more gentle and doesn't raise contrast when we darken bright areas. Not that this is overly bright, but you'll see. Just like that. Balancing it up. Then deselect, Control D. And taking another look at this. I think right through here we can enhance it a little bit, just to brighten it a touch, and through here as well I'm going to hold shift just a little bit. And so adding this selection to that selection by holding shift, select and mask. This is all very subjective at this point. You're the artist. You look at it and decide how you'd like it to be. And these are the tools that helps push it in that direction. I'm going to hide the marching ants with a Control H, and then I'm going to use levels this time because I'm bringing up light. And notice that there's a full histogram here, so I don't want to clip it too much. I'll bring in a little bit of the highlight, like that. Open up the mids a little more, just like that. And OK to that. Deselect so I don't forget. This area right here strikes me as just a tiny bit bright, perhaps. Well, it's not really that as much as it's slightly going out of focus. Notice that the depth of field is extremely narrow. It's nice and sharp here, but just a couple of inches back, not even an inch, it's starting to go out of focus already. So I'm questioning whether I want to darken that at all, but I think not. I'm going to, maybe a touch. So I'm going to take the burn tool and work on it just locally. And highlights, and keep the exposure not too, just a touch, just to keep our attention down in here more. Okay, so I'm just going around and quieting some of these bright spots selectively, just one little bit at a time, just to keep the focus in on what's going on in here. There's also a dodge tool, which brightens. So if I decided I wanted to, I'm going to hit the right bracket to make this a little bigger. And bring in a little more light in here, just like that. I think that's pretty good. So that's it. Ready to save and print. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to upload this or send it back to you, and we should discuss printing this and getting it ready for display on Monday. Thanks for helping. Bye.